Let's talk about AEW Dynamite from May 29th, 2023. We're going to separate this into, I guess, 3 parts. So we're going to talk about news and notes, but there's going to be a very important note that we're actually going to go and talk about after we talk about the show. And that note being the Warner Brothers Discovery drama that Meltzer and all these guys are involved with. I'm not going to make a separate video for it. Instead, I'm just going to talk about it on this show. So just wait till the end and we'll get there. Let's talk about some of the early news and notes, some of the short things I can get into. So Mark Henry, Jake Hager, and Arn Anderson are all going to be leaving AEW soon. I really don't know what purpose any of these people serve. Jake Hager is no longer needed. He sucked anyway. Mark Henry, I'm not even sure what he even did in AEW. And Arn Anderson was there mostly as a figurehead. He became irrelevant almost immediately after Cody left. So Cody has been whispering that he wants a manager in WWE. So I'm guessing they're going to just bring out the Codyverse on over to SmackDown. And he's going to have his own wise man, and it's going to be Arn Anderson. I will withhold judgment until it actually happens. But I didn't mind Arn Anderson being his manager when they were in AEW. I actually thought they did good together. Cody needs somebody to dance with, somebody to bounce off of. Managers are good for that. You know, I wish he would have had Arn Anderson there when Paul was there, you know, having the ability to have Paul Heyman, I'm talking about here, and Arn Anderson do stuff could have been fun. I mean, you still have that potential in the future, so we'll see. So the big news coming out of Double or Nothing wasn't any title changes or any debuts. It was that Edge decided to go and break his damn leg jumping off the top of the cage in a match where it didn't really need that spot. But everybody looked and said, hey, how did he jump off that cage and didn't break his legs? Turns out he did break his leg. Well, he fractured his tibia. And since he's 50 some odd years old, he's pretty much donezo for the rest of the year. That's what it seems like. He's supposed to be out for like 3 or 4 months because it's a fracture. But because he's older, it's probably going to take time for him to heal. So you can pretty much write him off to like November or something like that. I don't think he'll rush it. Some people think this is going to be the end of his career. I don't know. I don't see the purpose of him coming back after this. A lot of people noted, and we talked about it on Twitter a little bit, that Randy Savage did something similar. He jumped off the top of a cage in WCW. He was 43 or 44 or something like that, and absolutely destroyed his knee jumping off the cage. He landed on his feet. And all he did was like a chop to the head of Hulk Hogan or something like that, but he collapsed and was never the same. I mean, this is when he started doing the Macho Madness stuff and he puffed up like, you know, Super Vegeta and he could barely move. I would hate for that to be Edge, that he would try to make a comeback only for it to make his situation actually worse. So I think that he's one of these guys too, like CM Punk, where he's getting injured every so often. And I know Punk has been hurt a lot. You could barely touch CM Punk without him getting injured. But this is Edge's 4th or 5th major injury since his return in 2020. And that means he's been injured at least once or twice per year since then. I'm talking major time off needed injury. So it really sucks for him, but this is not a good one, because the last thing you need to tear up in your elderly days is your legs, you know. And I don't want Edge walking around on a cane or anything like that, especially since he doesn't really mean that much to AEW's product, you know. I'm not saying he should just retire now. I'm saying push the button and pick a pay-per-view and say Adam Copeland's last match and then call it a day. That's what I'm saying. You know, maybe Revolution next year or something. But I don't think he can do this for much longer. and especially do these hardcore matches where he's taking a lot of big bumps and stuff like this. I know he wants to get it out of his system, but that was a nasty fall. I'm surprised he even finished the match. Okie dokie. So let's talk about the show proper. We're going to skip Mercedes. We'll come back to that. We're going to start with Swerve because I want to start with the main event. So Swerve defeated Luchasaurus. I didn't watch this. I went to iron my pants. I legit didn't care about this. I don't care about Luchasaurus and Swerve. I really don't. Swerve won the match, but Luchasaurus kicked out of his finish, and he had to hit him with a house call and ended up pinning him. Then he cut Luchasaurus's hair because Luchasaurus yanked out one of his locks many, many weeks ago. Who the hell gives a shit about Luchasaurus, really? Nobody cares. This led to Swerve asking the question, who's next, essentially. And a funny bit about this, Prince Nana says that you should call Swerve the Stevie Wonder of AEW because nobody can see him. And I was knocking on the television and says, Nana, you realize Stevie Wonder is the one that can't see, right? I mean, do you realize that Stevie Wonder is the blind one? In any event, they had this big Forbidden Door gauntlet. The winner of the match will be the number one contender for the AEW World Title. Such luminaries like Jay Whitehall, Pac, Mystico, Shota Umino, Claudio, Castagnoli, Orange Cassidy, Heshishero, Leo Rush was actually in this, and it was good to see Leo again. Leo is one of these guys that you just kind of been like, you're like the Memphis Bleak of pro wrestling. You just put him in the right spot, and you're just waiting for him to blow up, but he just never gets there. He was a young guy when he had like the world was his oyster, but he's blown so many opportunities now. I think that he's just going to be a guy that is going to be a huge could-have been. I don't think he's ever going to reach his full potential. But I was thrilled to see Leo Rush, even though I knew he wasn't going to win. I was very, very excited to see him there. The winner of the match was Will Ospreay, the international champion, because Will Ospreay doesn't lose any match ever. And so Will Ospreay will be wrestling Swerve in the main event of Forbidden Door. Okie dokie. Will Ospreay will also be wrestling Kyle O'Reilly on Collision, defending the international title. Daniel Garcia also called out Will Ospreay because he wants to earn a match for the international title. I saw actually a huge AEW booster on the Twitter machine was pretty upset and said, Kyle O'Reilly is a big old fat loser. Meanwhile, Daniel Garcia, well, he's a winner, baby. Why do he have to earn a shot while Kyle O'Reilly is just given a shot? And I'm saying, like, you're asking for AEW to be consistent. Forget it. I threw that out the window 5 years ago. They're not going to be consistent. There really is no good reason why Daniel Garcia just can't walk up and say, title match now, and it doesn't get it. This is just kind of how pro wrestling is now. Pretty much anybody wants a title shot, they can get it. Things are handed to people. Other people have to win tournaments. Some people have to win rumbles. It's just no consistency anywhere in this thing. Back to the championship picture, though. Will Ospreay, Swerve, Forbidden Door. I think everybody assumed they were going to do this match at All In. Here's my kicker. I think they will do it all in. I think they're going to split the baby. Swerve is going to win the first match, and Ospreay is going to win the second. And I think that's probably the better way to do things so that people won't look at Swerve like he's just a transitional champion. And, he's just holding the belt for Will Ospreay. I can clearly see that Will Ospreay is carrying around an international belt. Unless something major is going to occur between now and All In, I see Ospreay losing at Forbidden Door, but then winning at All In. And I think that would make more sense, and it would actually protect Swerve if he were to lose to Will Ospreay at All In. is that you could always say, well, they're 1-1 against each other. There'll be a rubber match, which Ospreay will obviously win. So I think this is a nice little cushion for Swerve. Gives him a good win. It does beg the question, how is his thing with the Elite over already? Like, they picked his one opponent, and then they just like, we don't care anymore. We don't care about who the champion is anymore. He stopped talking about us. We stopped talking about him. We've moved on. I thought that was weird. Also, Forbidden Door seems like an odd time to do this match. I know this is one of their bigger performing pay-per-views in terms of people who actually care about it. Like, people do care about Forbidden Door for some odd reason. So, usually they will do like a New Japan guy, and that's what I expected. I expected maybe Mystico, who was a CMLL guy, but I expected somebody like him to win this match. Therefore, you would do the big Forbidden Door thing, like it's somebody from another company. But they decided to go with AEW versus AEW, and this ought to be just fine. I'm wondering how they're going to build this thing, because they're both baby faces. So I think if you force people to split the baby, they're going to choose Will Ospreay, which is going to do Swerve a disservice. He already gave him the belt too late. And now you have Will Ospreay, who is virtually undefeated, and everybody in that fan base likes him. They don't want to see him lose. Now, they do want to see these guys wrestle, but they don't want to see anybody lose. So some people are already trying to pitch a non-finish of some kind. Maybe a draw, a time limit draw. And I can see AEW doing that too. I would preferably have Swerve win the match. The other option would be a time limit draw, and then you build up to a match at Wembley. That probably would be the best option if you're not just going to have Swerve win, but I would suggest Swerve wins. There's a lot of people who are very frustrated with the way Swerve has been booked, specifically that he is wrestling in the opening match on the show, or he's not really being focused on any storylines or anything like that. I say you could tell he's just a guy holding the belt, because that's what they're doing. You know, when you're just a guy holding the belt, they're building up things around you. And every time you've seen WWE put the belt on a guy and they don't really have any faith in him, what you will typically see is that there are big deals going on around him. We're building up things away from him, much like, Bob Backlund in the 80s, much like when CM Punk first became the world heavyweight champion. It's like, yeah, you got the belt and everything, but there's more important things going on over here. I think the Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho thing was going on during that time, if I remember correctly. I think so. The late stage Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho thing, like the 2000, was it 10, 8, something like that? Anyway, that personal issues are going to be the real thing. And the real storyline of this program has been the Elite. So they don't really care about Swerve. And that's just how it is. I hate to break it to you guys, but whatever. Let's go back to Mercedes Moné. She started the show with her big celebration. She asked whether she was worth the wait or not, which is, not a big thing that you want to hear from women. And then she talked about she could have warned Willow about them turning on her. And then she said she hopes Willow comes back and beats their ass. She's trying to save face. She's trying to be a baby face again after she was forced into being a heel. Then Sky Blue interrupted this. Played a video of Mercedes Moné moaning into the when she got beat up. It seemed like a month ago. It seemed like Sky Blue admitted that it was her, and then attacked Mercedes from behind again tonight. Then, for the first time ever, Tony Khan announced that a match is going to happen tonight. That was built up tonight. This is a WWE specialty right here. Hey, these two people just got into it. They're going to have a match immediately. So Mercedes, of course, defeats Sky Blue. Earlier in the night, they played a vignette for a young lady by the name of Stephanie Vacher, whose name I've heard before, but mostly everything I know about her spilled from the mouth of Excalibur during the vignette. So I'm going to say thank you for the vignette, because at least I didn't get, raw dogged into this thing. I was told who this girl was. She currently holds the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Women's title, which was the belt that Mercedes Moné lost to Willow. So there's the story between these two. And Stephanie Vacker did a face-off with Mercedes after Mercedes beat Sky Blue. And we could probably complain a little bit about how they completely microwaved this who attacked Mercedes thing, because clearly they forgot about it and didn't go back to it and just decided we're just going to throw this thing on the barbecue, burn it, and then call it a day, call it cooked. And because there, I know that there was some brushes with Sky Blue and Mercedes early, with Julia Hart was involved and everything before Julia got hurt. So it was their best opportunity to try to tie it in. But as much as they push Sky Blue for her to get squashed like that, essentially, and I don't mean squashed as in she lost a match, in dominant fashion. What I mean is she didn't really get time to like rub elbows with Mercedes or anything like that. She was revealed to be the attacker and then immediately pinned. So just to get her out of the way. And that's just, how things work. And I'm okay with that. So they're probably going to do title for title and probably have both belts on Mercedes. The New Japan Pro Women's Strong belt and the TBS belt, which is probably good for AEW. But I don't know if it's good for that Stephanie Vacker. But we'll see how good she is. Well, I'll see. Because I'm not about to go chase down CMLL tapes. I cannot stand CMLL. It's super boring. If it was AAA, I probably would have seen her already. But CMLL, no. I'm going to pass on that. All right, Jon Moxley. He cut a promo. Said that he's far from 100%. And it's a bad idea to take up a match with Rocky Romero. Look, it's a bad deal to be anywhere near Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero is one useless sack of garbage. All right? Useless. Completely useless. And of course, he loses to Jon Moxley. And of course, it takes forever for the match to actually end. This guy wrestles, he walks around with an eye patch. There's nothing wrong with him. He doesn't look cool. He's not a pirate. He doesn't have like any cool scars or tattoos or something underneath there that might tell you anything about his character. He's just a dude walking around in an eye what the hell does Azukar mean? I'm not Googling that. I want you to take this bootleg Spartan brand Chavo Guerrero and get him out of here. I don't care who he's friends with. I don't care what office he works in. If he has to work, make him work Ring of Honor and call it a day. You have so many other people that you could be focusing on your show. Why is Rocky Romero getting television time? This guy's been around forever, literally, and he sucks. Literally, he's super boring. I don't care whose friend he is. He's not my friend. Next, Chris Jericho has a talk show now with trees in the background, and he's doing tree puns. Now he's calling Big Bill Redwood, which is a tree. He's calling the fans his branches. And I was shaking my head the entire time. So many people were so upset. He had a Learning Tree University t-shirt, which tells me that this guy is just ripping off Andre Chase University. He's got to be. Because he keeps trying to avoid saying teachable moment. Even somebody says teachable moment into the microphone in this segment. I'm thinking to myself, why? Why is he doing this? Now, I actually find Chris Jericho to be humorous. The phony laughter, the thanks guys, and all that kind of stuff. It's funny. He's legitimately hilarious. I just want to know, why is he doing a ripoff of Chase University? And yeah, everybody who did all the digging on social media found that, Vince McMahon was called the Learning Tree, and people think this is a ripoff of Vince. He never used it on television, so it's not a big deal. But one of the biggest, most over things in NXT is Chase University. And they've been doing teachable moments and all this kind of stuff. But, Andre Chase has been doing mostly a Bobby Knight style character where he cusses out the students and stuff like that. Jericho hasn't done that. He's decided he's going to do disingenuous babyface kind of gimmick. I don't understand why he's doing this, but it got a chuckle out of me. Anyway, he talked about people not walking the walk when they want to be under the learning tree. He talked about ice cream. Said if adversity was ice cream, put a cherry on top. No, maybe you shouldn't put cherries in ice cream. I don't know. I don't know what you guys do. Anyway, he introduced Brian Keith, who is his new student, one of his new students. Brian Keith was crashed out about the lack of respect by Chris Jericho. The crowd was chanting, "Shut the F up." He then snapped on the crowd, said that they need to show more respect. Jericho told the crowd that it's a family show, chuckled nervously, and I was laughing because it was hilarious. Then Hook started walking to the ring because Hook is still involved with Chris Jericho. As he was walking to the ring, security surrounded him because, he's a sawed-off badass, despite the fact he's 160 pounds. Then Samoa Joe, for no reason at all, walked up to Hook, spoke to him, and then they left together. Later on, they said that they don't exist on the learning tree's time. The learning tree exists on their time. So Samoa Joe and Hook are now appearing. They're Gohan and Piccolo. And I don't understand this. I don't get it. Maybe this ties into when Joe was world champion and Hook was a contender, and maybe there was something there. But I don't think Hook needs a mentor, especially one that's not his daddy. Especially when his daddy is literally right there. And you have so much more intrigue of, hey, using Taz and Hook in an angle where everybody... Look, Samoa Joe doesn't need to wrestle Chris Jericho for this belt. Why would Joe care about this belt? Why is Joe babyface again? There's just so many questions that's floating around in the ether. I'm just never going to be able to grab too many of them and get any answers out of them. I don't care about this. I don't care about this at all. This blows. Next thing I don't care about. Don Callis wants Orange Cassidy in his stable. Orange Cassidy says no and tore up the contract. Then we find out that Trent Beretta is joining the stable. I really just wanted to throw my television because they're trying to find ways to remix Trent Beretta. I don't care about him. Nobody does. This bullet head bastard need to get the hell on up out of here. He been in this company 5 years. He ain't got 5 fans. Nobody cares about this dude. All right? He's just a waste of clothes. Next, Chris Statlander. She did show up, however. She's still hanging around with that useless bald dude who is talking about why they turned on Willow. Apparently, Willow won a match that Chris Statlander wanted to win. And they felt like that was some kind of betrayal that Willow became the #1 contender for the TBS title and didn't let Chris win. So Chris is now mad, says she's doing something for herself for once, and she's tired of cleaning up other people's messes. She's done being a protector. Everybody's going to need protection from her. I groaned because, look, this feels like something else they ripped off of NXT. Fallon Henley just did this on NXT, where she was the mother hen and was everybody's best friend. And then she wasn't getting anywhere. So then they decided to turn her heel. It's like, is somebody watching NXT and just deciding they're going to bite stuff? And look, I'm not being a WWE biased guy. I got an NXT bias anyway. But how many things have we seen come from NXT onto Dynamite? The double pinfall they did on NXT, they did it on Dynamite. Girls getting kicked in the crotch and that disqualification. They did it on NXT. They then did it on, I think, Dynamite or Collision. You had Jericho running around doing Learning Tree University, while NXT has been having for 2 or 3 years Andre Chase University. You got Fallon Henley, who is in NXT, the babyface forever. And her job was mostly to be a mentor and friend to all the other up-and-coming girls. She wasn't getting what she wanted, so she turned heel. And now they're doing it with Chris Statlander, and it's almost exactly the same. Am I seeing things? Or is this just pro wrestling and, everything is a copycat? But I'm looking at it as like, this stuff is coming, there's too much of this. It's a little too much for one time. It'd have been, if it's spaced out, then maybe. But there are some things that you really only see in NXT that now you're like, okay, maybe the Chris Statlander thing is a reach, but the double pinfall that they did on NXT, literally the day before they did a double submission on Dynamite. Oh, okay, are you kidding me? The girls who hit each other in the crotch and got a disqualification, and then they turned around and did it on like Dynamite or Collision. That I think it was the same week or the week after that. Like, no way. You're telling somebody is watching that show and copying stuff off that show. Like, it's clear as crystal now. And I can't unsee it. But that don't mean nothing. Because if it's good, steal it. If you can steal good shit, if you see something you like, take it. But make sure you do it good. Chris Statlander is good. I like Chris Statlander. So I'm not going to be mad that she's doing a similar gimmick to Fallon Henley. I like Chris Statlander. My only problem is she's hanging around with that Goomba right next to her. That dude who seems to always cut jokes. Like he's trying to cut Kendrick Lamar jokes. I hate the way that you walk. I hate the way. Like, come on, man. You're trying too hard, right? All you people who are in the culture, you're trying too hard. And you're like 2 months, you're almost a month late anyway. So get out of here. Just get this dude out of here. He's done nothing. He's doing nothing. Chris Statlander is probably better off with Don Callis than she is with that Goomba. So that Stokely dude is absolutely shits. He's the shits. And I don't see him adding anything to the product. He's been there for like 3 years. He hadn't added anything to the product. I don't know. And nobody he works with is over. So hopefully Chris gets over and it works out for her because people actually care about her. People like her. So people will actually, people like Willow too. So their angle will actually get over. But it ain't going to be because of Stokely. I can tell you that much. Next, they played the MJF vignette. I forgot he was back already. Apparently they suggested he's going to wrestle next week. Maybe I read that on Twitter. I didn't see anything on TV, so maybe I'm just overthinking it. But he's supposed to be wrestling Roosh. And I'm thinking, that's a hell of a comeback match, brother. You really care about MJF? You're going to put him in there with Roosh? Who's going to try to hurt him on purpose? Oh, boy. Anyway, the Elite cut a promo, pop of the night, when Okada gets the microphone and told the crowd, shut up, bitches. Huge pop out of me. Everybody, he got over with everybody on that one. The Elite claimed to run the company. Then the Young Bucks started talking about their gym shoes. Apparently they got released some Reebok pumps, which shrug. Okay, I guess. I guess AEW fans, more merchandise for them to sell. Then they said they had some gifts for their guys after winning Anarchy in the Arena. They got a Lamborghini for Okada, who was, is that for me? Is that for me? Oh, I love you guys. That's a funny guy, man. He got a good sense of humor. So the Elite Matt Jackson says that he told Edge backstage to break a leg, and he really went out there and did it. It felt like he jinxed him. He said, man, get well soon. But we got to strip you of the TNT title. Then he says that when it comes to being the new TNT champion, we're just going to give it to our buddy Jack. And I popped at that. I know that everybody would have hated this, but for me, it's a huge pop. I wish they could have gotten away with it because it would have gotten so much heat for Jack Perry to just be given a championship. You could have always done something where he loses it later, but for you to physically just hand a guy a title he didn't earn, that would have been so much heat and would have played great into the story that his career, everything that he does is going to be because he's friends with the Elite. For me, they just should have done it. Do you remember when they gave Randy Orton the world title and he lost it immediately? That's what you should have done with Jack Perry. Should have said, okay, the Elite already gave the belt to Jack Perry, but we're going to pick his opponent, and then that opponent just beats him and wins the belt. To me, that's the best way to do it. because Jack Perry would have got a ton of heat because he won the title or was given the title and didn't earn it. And then the guy who beats him would have been considered a legitimate champion because he actually did beat him. And then he would have been in the crosshairs of the elite for beating Jack Perry for the belt. Then I have to say, Jack wants to try to actually win it back. So that could have been fun. You could have done something there. But instead, it had that stooge, alien, bullet head Christopher Daniels, who's apparently now interim executive vice president, and says that anything he says is at the behest of Tony Khan. And he takes the belt, says that they're not giving it away because this is AEW with the best wrestle. It ends up, it's going to be a ladder match. So there's going to be qualifiers for a ladder match with another NXT idea. Those of you who are not watching NXT, they have a women's North American title. They were having qualifying matches for that championship. Now AEW is saying, we're going to have qualifying matches for the TNT title. And I'm thinking like, it can't be a coincidence, bro. This is like, I feel like I'm in the other guys. And you know, when the guy was making like the TLC references and he's like, I don't get it. And everybody's like, come on, man. That's how I feel. Like, you're making clear NXT references, stuff that they're currently doing, or stuff that literally just happened on their show is now happening on Dynamite. Why? And I'm the only one that sees this? I'm the only one that sees it. All right. I'll take that L. Maybe I'm just a conspiracy theorist. I don't care about this ladder match. And the crazy thing is, why do a ladder match when the guy literally just broke his leg? You just had a guy break his leg from falling from a far height, and you're like, hey, that's not enough broken legs. Let's put somebody else up on a ladder so he can fall off and break his goddamn legs. Who's going to break their legs next for this belt? This is the crazy thing. This belt it doesn't work out for anybody. I think this belt has had a couple of people win it from injuries because somebody else got hurt. So I think it still ends up on Jack, and that's the best option for that belt is for Jack Perry to have it. I'm not a big fan of Jack Perry, but it makes sense for him to be a champion now and for the elite to help him become a champion. I really wish they just would have given it to him. And he walked around with it, and, you know, maybe they find somebody backstage who really deserves it and put him over. You know, that would have been so much better than what they're going to do, which is a ladder match where everybody's going to jump off everything, and Jack Perry's going to end up winning it anyway. At least that's the way I see it. So the show, not very good. I didn't really care about any of the matches. The Gauntlet, I didn't really care about that either. I was more excited when I thought it was Jay White versus Pac one-on-one. Because I legitimately thought it was Jay White versus Pac one-on-one. And I was like, oh, that might be fun. And then, I forgot that they were doing a gauntlet. So, unfortunately for me. Apparently, they, before we move on to the next section, apparently AEW promoted Saraya versus Mariah May. And the match was canceled, apparently. And Saraya was very upset. She tweeted about it that she's going to start speaking her mind. The match was rebooked for next week. But it seems like that what Brian Alvarez said is true. And that is now AEW is starting to move more towards a WWE type of schedule where they're changing things on the fly so that so many people have no idea what's going on. And Brian Alvarez says, quote, Tony switched the script on yesterday's pay-per-view multiple times during the afternoon. Most people, not just the wrestlers, have no idea what they're doing until the day of the show, and sometimes not until an hour or so before the show. People are flown to towns and given nothing to do. Others are begged the day before the show to please get to the town so they can do something last minute. He knows what he wants to do for the pay-per-views, but as far as week-to-week TV, everything is booked show to show. For most people, he's incredibly difficult to get a hold of. In some ways, it's legitimately is more like 2019 WWE than it is 2019 AEW. And that's tremendous. That's tremendous. Normally, I would say, what the hell does Brian Alvarez know about anything? He knows nothing about nothing. You know, he's got a brain the size of an olive. At the same time, though, it is visible in the product now. It does come across a little bit like WWE now. The Chris Jericho segment is a talk show with gimmicks and stuff all over the place. Feels very WWE. The booking a match to occur once the situation, like the inciting incident and the conclusion on the same show, feels very much like those rushed storylines in WWE that I usually hate. The one thing about AEW that I did kind of like is that you had expectations. They gave you a card. Here's what we booked for the show. Like it or love it. We're going to do some, spontaneous things within the show, but there is no spontaneous match, where two guys get into an argument and they're going to have a match right now. Like that stuff doesn't really happen in AEW, but now it's starting to happen. I wish it would happen less in WWE, because it's completely inauthentic and it's not believable that people who have to sign contracts for matches can all of a sudden be thrown into matches, on the fly while they're not dressed or, they just got into an argument and all of a sudden, you're gonna fight right now, even though you're just arguing. You're like, wait a minute. So I like some spontaneity, but I'm not a huge fan of the, I would rather prefer that you set a structure and then have things fly off the handle than there to be no structure, no expectations, and I just go into the miasma, not know what's going on, and stumble across this match or stumble across this idea or whatever. To me, it's probably better for you to have a structure that gets violated. A match just set up that it's a disqualification or other people get involved, rather than I don't know what's happening anyway, and all this stuff to be a waste of my time. So let's go into, because this is all going to tie together, that there's going to be this huge change in AEW. So apparently, Puck, a news site, they put out a story about AEW's media rights fee. And there were some people that was very, very concerned about this upon reading it. And they immediately decided they were going to be defensive. So this is an excerpt from an interview by Matt Baloney, who is a sports reporter. He says, quote, "I'm told the exclusive window closes in July, and AEW leader Tony Khan is said to be disappointed with the offer currently on the table. Khan also surely knows that Zaz, that would be David Zaslav, losing the NBA would give AEW more leverage, even though the money to the re-up AEW is a mere drop in the bucket to the NBA. If the window closes without a deal, others could swoop in for those rights, as Comcast has done with the NBA. I'm not sure how alluring AEW would be to another platform, especially since only non-WWE partners could bid. But the wrestling shows still do okay on the Turner networks. It's reliable programming, and a rival suitor could further push Zaslav into hot water in his cable carriage deals." Now, this is just solid stuff that really shouldn't break your brain too much, and you shouldn't be upset. This is solid, almost clinical analysis of what's going on here. He's basically telling you David Zaslav made an offer to AEW. AEW was a little disappointed with it, but they're in an exclusive window, which means that they can continue talking. But Tony Khan on Sports Illustrated said, quote, "For everyone who cares about AEW all over the world, we're in a great position. This is going to work out really well for AEW. We're having great talks, and people should feel very confident about what that means for the wrestlers, the staff, and the fans. As a result, of everyone's hard work and endless support from the fans, there will be a tremendous deal for AEW. The outlook for the company is so bright moving forward. Now, that came out before, I should say, the baloney interview. So Tony Khan is being questioned about the AEW rights fee, and he's like, oh, it's going to be a tremendous deal. Then this Matt Baloney guy shows up and says, well, AEW is a little bit disappointed about the deal. And now everybody's like, okay, what's going on? So first, there was the denial stage. Who is this Matt Baloney guy? Nobody knows who he is. And then, they're arguing with they're arguing with like WrestleNomics and Fightful, and they're trying to tell them. And for the first time ever, the wrestling media actually has information. They're like, look, this guy is a serious sports reporter, and what he's saying is not anything negative about AEW. It's analysis of the situation, that if they had to have been offered something by now, and if they were offered something, they would have taken it if it was good, which is common sense, right? If somebody offers you $200 and you didn't take it, well, that's a little bit of a disappointing, would be, you could say, a reach, but you didn't take it. So clearly you were not satisfied with the number that they offered you. So it's clear that Warner Bros. Discovery has offered AEW something, and they have not taken it. So whether they were disappointed with it or not is up in the air. But they were offered something and they didn't take it. Now Tony Khan thinks that it's going to be some kind of tremendous deal. We don't know what that means, because they're probably not going to be too open and too public with it unless it's astronomical. But now people are like, oh my God, this baloney guy, who is he? That was the first thing. So the second thing is they immediately went to, this is WWE trying to smear AEW. This is Chris LeGentile. This is Nick Khan. They're trying to tear AEW down. They're trying to make AEW look bad, even though nothing said makes AEW look bad. In fact, the guy said that the numbers were strong enough that if they give away AEW, that David Zaslav might get in more hot water for letting another big product leave the Turner networks. These guys did not even read this stuff and didn't even pay attention to what's being said. It's a literal fucking tweet. All you got to do is read a tweet. That's all it is. It's not like you got to go and read a 200-page paper. It's literally a tweet that says they were offered money, they were disappointed with it, they didn't take it, but negotiations are still going to happen. Outside suitors may come in, offer more money that will put pressure for David Zaslav to give AEW more money, because if he allows something that is a strong ratings draw for the network to leave, he is going to be in more trouble with the people who hired him, which are the shareholders of Warner Bros. Discovery. It's literally common sense. It doesn't require for you to have an IQ higher than room temperature. All right, it's not that difficult. And yet a lot of AEW fans made it hard as hell. And I don't get it. Okay, I don't get it. So then once all this stuff is out there, this Matt Baloney thing is floating around, people are like, okay, what's going on? So here it is, May 28th. So it says, according to Dave Meltzer, AEW sources have told him that the first offer was not disappointing to Tony Khan, but that the two sides have yet to reach any deal. Negotiations for both TV and streaming are ongoing with Warner Bros. Discovery and not TNT Sports. Well, let's pause right here. If it wasn't a disappointment, why didn't you take it? It's common sense, right? It's not a disappointment, but it's not good enough. Okay, maybe you don't want to use those exact words, but you didn't take it. So, but then we go into the conspiracy theory that after the reporting came out, it was pointed out by some online that Baloney is longtime friends with WWE CEO Nick Khan, and that Baloney has had Khan on his podcast before, leading some to believe that it was a planted piece. WWE met with Warner Bros. Discovery during their TV rights negotiations, which Tony Khan said was, quote, part of sports when asked about it. So, oh my goodness. Nick Khan was on his podcast, what was this? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I think it was 2020 when he was on the podcast. Longtime friends. And he's trying to make AEW look bad by saying they do strong numbers and that David Zaslav better re-sign them or he might be in some trouble. Oh my God. These people are looking for conspiracy theories everywhere, bro. It's like, it ain't that big a deal, man. I guarantee you that WWE does not care whether Warner Brothers Discovery re-ups with AEW or not. Now, this has led to some people reminding everybody what some of us have been saying for about 3 or 4 years, that there may be possibly a small ownership stake by Warner Brothers Discovery into AEW. And if I'll even take it to the next level, if they don't own a piece of AEW currently, they should consider buying into it. I will say that. So Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics brought this back up. He says, I believe Warner Bros. Discovery owns a minority, non-controlling, possibly non-voting ownership stake in AEW. He says on the September 26, 2023 media call, Tony Khan was asked directly about Warner Bros. Discovery ownership and responded ambiguously. He didn't directly confirm or deny whether Warner Bros. Discovery owns a stake. He alluded to the possibility of a deal involving Warner Bros. Discovery having a piece or a bigger piece potentially. I'm not going to go into the transcript of Tony Khan neither confirming or denying. I mean, he did a good summary of it. Tony Khan waffled, as he always does when he asks a real serious question. So I guess, I don't know if he's the owner or whatever. He's like the top reporter for bodyslam.net. Cassidy Haynes put in the comment section that he heard that Warner Bros. Discovery owns about 30% of AEW. And he says, I quote, I was never able to second source it, but that was one source told me the day before Meltzer asked about it on the media call Brandon referenced. And this is, that's a lot. 30% is a lot. I thought that Warner Brothers owned a piece of AEW. I was thinking 20, 15 maybe. It's clear that, they're paying for the overhead of AEW. They're paying a lot of their production costs. So maybe they have an ownership stake. If they have an ownership stake, though, then this debate about their media rights deal is not that big of a debate at all because they can't go anywhere. They're not going to leave. And that's going to be, that's why everything needs to be taken into account. It needs to be taken into account that the NBA is now gone. It's not officially gone yet. As far as I know, the NBC, they're gearing up to have the NBA, but I don't think it's gone public yet that the NBA is gone. But once it's official and the NBA is gone, that's going to do irreparable damage to Warner Bros. Discovery, TNT, TBS, etc. That's going to mean they may want to lean more heavily into keeping AEW. So that means they may offer them more money, but they're not going to offer AEW more money than AEW makes. And as I've been saying for a long time, look at the things that have nothing to do with the on-screen product. Look at the sponsors for AEW. Do you see a lot of sponsors? You do not. So that's one of the things where I say that's going to end up being a question. It's not just how many people are watching. It's going to be how many people are watching. What is the age range of the people watching? Can you attract sponsors to your product? Is the merchandise moving? I don't know how well the merchandise is moving anymore. We know that, the television ratings have fluctuated. We know that attendance is not doing that well. It's fluctuating and mostly going down. They're starting to do these residencies now where they're going to go and hang out in one particular area, like in Arlington for like 2 weeks or something like that. They're just going to go there and just chill and do like 4 shows in this area, which may work out and they may get a tax break for it. It might help business, but then again, it might burn out the audience. And everybody's going to be like, I ain't going to this one, I go to the next one. Or I ain't going to the next one, I go to the third one. I ain't going to that one, I'm going to this one. And whatever the case may be, you know, it's an interesting, I'm not going to begrudge them for trying something different. But there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account. You know, does Warner Brothers Discovery already own a piece of AEW? If they don't, they should consider buying into it. And Tony Khan should consider selling them a piece. I don't consider you selling them half, but just 30%, that's not quite half, but it's more than I probably would give them. But you also have to look at it and say, who would come in and give these guys money that would match what Warner Brothers Discovery would give them? Even if it was Fox, they would probably put them on FS1, which is a smaller network than TBS and TNT, which would directly affect the ratings. And even if they would have more money, they would have a limited reach. There's also the discussion about the pay-per-views. Do they want to have a stream pay-per-views on like Max or something like that? Do they want to find some kind of other way of showing the pay-per-views? Do they want to keep charging people $50 as they increase the amount of pay-per-views that they're doing? There's a lot to be into here. There's a lot going on. It's not just the TV rights deal. That's just the major thing because that's going to be their major revenue stream. But there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account. And Warner Brothers Discovery is hemorrhaging money. They're going to be hemorrhaging viewers once the NBA is gone. Are they going to be able to trust AEW to hold on to that audience? I would not put a lot of stock in wrestling fans. If I was David Zaslav, I would not bet the farm on wrestling fans. They're too fickle. You know, I would not bet the farm on wrestling fans at all. That doesn't mean I wouldn't bring the show back. Clearly, the show does well enough that it earns its stripes. But the idea that you need to have 3 different AEW shows, you could probably do with just 2. You know, you probably, instead of having 5 hours of programming, you could do with 4. You know, and there's been some chatterboxing about that too, about making Dynamite 3 hours or making Collision 3 hours. And they've been teasing it with Rampage, tacking Rampage on the Dynamite, tacking Rampage on the Collision, just to see how it works. It makes Collision a worse show, if we're being honest. And Collision's already unwatchable as it is. But it's a lot of things floating around. And a lot of AEW fans are getting kind of nervous. And they're starting to clutch at their pearls and say, oh my God, what's going on? Take it easy. I do believe that they're going to get a TV rights deal. They'll probably turn Dynamite to 3 hours. Collision, 2 hours, no Rampage. Streaming deal, I expect one. Not a huge one, but I expect streaming to be part of it because once the NBA takes a chunk out of Warner Brothers and leaves, that's going to be their next thing is how can they boost their streaming service, and they're going to want to say, hey, AEW, can you produce pay-per-views for us? You know, at the very least, people will try to, get those things and watch them. You know, you might be able to get some wrestling fans to convert over to Max, and, proof of concept is Peacock and all that kind of stuff. You might be able to get it to work out. But I don't think that these companies are just going to turn around one day and it's going to be gone. I don't believe that. It's going to have a tough time, but it's not necessarily AEW. Well, they're having a tough time. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the ratings are in the shits. The attendance is in the shits. We don't know about pay-per-views buys yet, but it ain't looking great. But it's mostly the network is in trouble. It's the entire media space in trouble. Cable companies are collapsing left and right. They're losing tons of money on, these big conglomerates are losing money on streaming deals. There's a lot of things going on that are wrong that is beyond just people are not putting together wrestling matches that we care about. It's real life stuff happening in the media space. And Tony Khan should have been prepared for this. I think his best bet is to sell a piece of AEW to Warner Brothers. That way you have some stability. You don't have to worry about them in 5 years deciding to kick you off the network, because now you sell them enough that you could buy it back, and you get as much as you can out of this deal. Maybe you don't get $1 billion, which is what everybody is saying that you get, but you get enough that you're stable, that you could continue doing what you do until you get hot again, and that's what they should be trying to do now, and not trying to, have these quote unquote tremendous deals. Get something that keeps the lights on for now, because you're cold right now. And a lot of people are looking and saying, ugh, what's going on with this product? Get something that's going to make you profitable, maybe not wildly profitable, but profitable. Give them some control if that's what they want. And if you don't like it in a year or two, you buy them out because you have billions of dollars of your own. Don't worry about Ring of Honor. I mean, it's dead in the water as it is. Don't worry about Rampage. It's over. Rampage is dead. But keep Dynamite and Collision, if you can, running as long as possible. You might have to take some sacrifices, but it might be for the best. Some people have said that, hey, Tony Khan is in the same situation that TNA was in. They were playing hardball with some networks and ended up getting dropped. And I don't think Tony Khan will be that stupid. At least I hope he's not that stupid. I don't think he's that prideful. Yes, people are running around talking about how the company is worth $2 billion and all that horse shit, Forbes and all that. He can't possibly take that stuff to heart. He's got to be realistic. He's the one who has access to all these numbers, and he has access to all the percentages. He knows what the real value of the company is. He can let the marks be marks, but he has to be realistic. And his pride might not want him to go out there and speak loudly about how much money they're going to get, because maybe it's not going to be a lot. But his pride versus his company basically going to a much smaller network and being pretty much invisible, I don't think that's going to be better for you. I don't think going from a top 10 network to no doubt a network under the top 10, whether it's Fox Sports or FXX or unless you can get an ESPN deal, which might be nice. But going to some other network might not give you what you're looking for. It might not give you what you want. It might give you more money, but your reach will be limited. So there's a lot of things to think about here. I wouldn't be too concerned unless you start hearing that Warner Bros. Discovery literally can't afford it, and if they can't afford what Tony Khan wants to pay, or wants them to pay, then Tony Khan's asking for too much. He's got to be realistic. Take what the company can give you, get some stability, sell them a piece, put them on, in a position where they want to keep you around. That way your company will still be alive. You have billions of dollars. You can always buy them out later and call it a day, But scaring your audience and trying to put out there there's a WWE hit job is bullshit. Stop doing that. Stop trying to get people to believe this is a conspiracy theory. Yes, it helps AEW because they say, oh, well, everything's tremendous. Everything's great. It's, WWE spin is ruining everything. And people are like, yeah, it's just the WWE. They're talking negative. In reality, Warner Bros. Discovery is suffering. AEW is suffering. They got to try to figure out a way to work together, and they're going to let the fans think that it's just, WWE talking shit, but it's not. This is reality, sir. These companies are taking huge financial hits, and decisions need to be made. All right, I've jabbered enough. I've talked way too much about this. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.